Welcome to the Dallas Duo podcast,
your weekly wellness coffee date.
We're friends in Dallas, always looking for the best ways to optimize our health
and have fun along the way. Welcome to a special Dallas Duo mini-series recorded live at Witness Wellness 2025, the 4th Annual Women's Health Summit in Dallas. Over the course of the day, I'll be sitting down with panel speakers and experts immediately after their sessions to dive deeper into the ideas they just shared.
I created Witness Wellness as a summit for real talk, real experts, and real solutions, covering the topics women often don't get to talk about: hormones, metabolism, mental load, fitness, and more. Whether you're in the room with us today at the slate or listening later, these mini episodes are your backstage pass to actionable insights and honest conversations. Let's jump in to today's guest and session.
Today's guest is Dr. Jenna Mountain. Jenna is a licensed professional counselor, certified sex therapist, and leadership and relationship coach with over a decade of hands-on experience. A trauma-informed expert in relationships and sexuality, she challenges conventional thinking, disrupts systemic patterns, and guides individuals, couples, and groups to self-differentiation and authentic living. Dr. Mountain is also EDMR certified and a dynamic, engaging speaker who inspires audiences to harness inner strength, step into bold confidence, and flourish personally and professionally. Welcome, Jenna. We're so excited to have you on today.
Thank you so much.
So you just spoke on the Witness panel today. Yeah. Can you tell us what your topic was that you spoke on?
Yeah, we talked about sexual desire specifically for females.
Okay. Very important topic.
Yes. Desire issues are one of the number one issues that come into a sex therapist's office. Mm-hmm. So yeah, everybody wants to either solve for like the differences between two partners, right? Mm-hmm. Like wanting sex at a different amount or level or whatever. But then also just accessing our own sexual desire to be really challenging and difficult, specifically for females. So.
And do you find that like it ranges depending on the age, as far as that being the reason that people come in?
I think probably not as far as like how often it occurs, at least in my office, but mm-hmm. I do think age, like life stage, context, either some of those classic aging experiences, mm-hmm. it definitely changes what the factors are impacting how we experience our sexual desire. I've worked with adults of all ages. So yeah, I see it pretty much across the board.
And since it is such, a personal topic, do you feel like there is not a perfect client, but like an ideal client? Like, do people have to feel, I guess, ready to come in and be open about talking about these things?
Yeah, I think in general, it is very personal and vulnerable to go through the mental health process at all, but definitely talk about our sex lives. I also think desire is just vulnerable, right? We're talking about an internal experience that really requires us to access parts of us that are deeper parts, if you will. So I do think there's like a vulnerability factor, that there's some readiness on that front. I think the clients that get the most out of the experience are the ones that are ready to give up their agenda.
Okay.
To come in and admit, maybe I am wrong, or I don't know as much as I thought I knew. Just an open-handedness, I think, is really what helps people most.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. What were some other main points that you hit on during your talk?
The phrase that I say a lot, which was taught to me early in my training, was, I don't think it's that most women don't like sex. I think it's that they don't like the sex they're being offered. And I try to take the time to expand that, because I think when people hear that phrase, they automatically assume I'm talking about maybe the specific interaction in their relationship or their specific sexual activity, what's on the menu, if you will.
Yes.
But the truth is, I mean that much more globally, much more contextually. Women don't like the sex they're being offered culturally, the message about sex and their role in it, being sexually objectified, being sexually oppressed, not really having a good grid for what female sexuality can look like. We have a very male-centric sexuality or sexual culture. And so I think giving women an opportunity to realize that they might actually really love sex if they were offered an opportunity to get to know what they want sexually. And so the thesis statement at the end of it was, self-attunement is one of the most important skills to really help our sexual desire flourish, to get to know yourself, to quit always giving it away and attuning to others first, to figure out, what do I like, whether that's an activity or touch or the messaging and beliefs around sex. That's really kind of the big everything that I shared today.
Yes. Well, and that's so interesting to me that, in that within that topic, you're talking about really just the overall, the idea of sex that women are being
Yes.
offered, not just like in your personal life. Because I do think culture plays such a big part in
Oh,
what
yeah.
we're taught about sex, how we think about sex,
Yes.
how willing we are to talk about sex.
Yes, yes,
So,
completely. And I think that that's the part that we miss. So we're just thinking about, again, I use the term menu, like that sexual menu of the activities that I may or may not do in any sexual exchange or experience. That's the sex being offered that I don't like, which could be the case.
yeah.
But I don't think women realize how much the greater sexual message about themselves is dampening our spirit, if you
Mhm.
will, is really wounding our souls and our emotional experience of the greater topic of sex,
Yeah.
where we can't even get in the mindset to explore and figure out what touch, what position, what experience, what activity would I like to share in, because we have this very complicated relationship with sex on a grander scale.
I don't know if you touched on this, but how do you think our thoughts and ideas about our bodies kind of play
Oh,
into
yeah.
that, all of that as
Yeah.
well, the big picture?
When I was trained, they used to say, as a sex therapist, I'm a certified sex therapist. They used to say 0.9% of women, and although there is a rise on males experiencing this issue, but
Mhm.
99.9% of women have some form of body image issue, and the other 1.1% are probably being dishonest about it.
Wow.
And so, yeah, and that is a big part
Mhm.
of the sexual experience is how I experience my body, my relationship with my body, whether that is body image or even how I experience health and function and,
Mhm.
movement. So the relationship with the self, huge, huge player, huge player.
Yeah, it definitely plays a role in desire.
Huh?
In
Yeah.
100%.
So, one of the things that I learned, and I think has pretty much been consistent, there's always exceptions. I don't think there are rules as much as there are trends that we observe. And then always want to be careful that there are exceptions to that trend, right?
Mhm.
But when you talk to a lot of males, like they will say they get aroused or get turned on watching whoever they're having sex with be turned on and aroused.
Mm.
Like they enjoy that. That's like a big factor. What's really interesting for the women that I work with is most of them get turned on when they are connected with themselves, when they
Oh,
think
wow.
they are
So it's more
right.
like in your head when
Yeah,
you're
like when
thinking,
you feel
you're feeling
sexy,
yourself.
when you're yes, when you're feeling yourself, when you think you're it,
Yes.
when you think you're beautiful, when you think you're sexy and you have access to that internal sexual power. A lot of women talk about that being kind of a primary space for them to access their sexual desire and arousal. Like they find that to be a really big factor. Well, if the message is about yourself and the message
Mhm.
is about sex in general and all of that have been negative in your role, you're going to have a hard
Mm.
time accessing that.
Yeah.
So that's a big piece.
That is so interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
I think there's definitely more of that mind body connection for women when it
Oh,
comes to
yes.
all of the things with desire.
Yes. Yes. It's a huge factor. And we do see it in men. There are reasons why they have some push past that factors in there. So I don't want any men who happen to listen to think that this doesn't apply to them if they're struggling. What I do think, the way I describe it is I think women's bodies demand a level of congruence that we just
Mhm.
can't ignore it when we're struggling in those areas. We
Yeah.
have a hard time pushing past and ignoring it. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I think our bodies and our minds and the connection between the two demand congruence that, yes, can be disruptive and annoying and it interrupts
Mhm.
things. And we can't just, kind of do the lazy thing. But I also
Yes.
think it's beautiful
Y
because we are calling ourselves and our relationships into a higher standard. And I think that's
Mhm.
good.
Well, and there's a lot of awareness there, I
Uh huh.
think,
Yeah.
is what you're saying.
Yeah.
For people who are listening who weren't here today, what is one tip or takeaway that, like, anyone can try this week?
Yeah. So I would get really careful about how I say this because I think sometimes it gets peddled in kind of a cheap and ineffective way. But I do think if I believe that a big key skill and
Mhm.
component to healing the way we experience our sex life and specifically sexual desire is self-attunement, is to
Okay.
learn to listen to the self. I do think journaling can be something that is for free and you can do at home that can help you start to listen to yourself. Now, I do think sometimes we need help doing effective journaling and doing it in a way that's helpful. I always talk about doing journaling in a way that I would want you like I teach my couples to communicate.
Yeah.
I have my individual clients do the same thing with themselves in the journal. So I
Oh,
want them
that's so
to
interesting. Like, like, for example, like, what's a cue? I
yeah.
love that.
So I have them just practice reflecting on how they experience their day. Right. So, and like an end of the day journaling exercise. And I'm like, it doesn't have to take forever. You don't
Mhm.
have to, write a novel. But I want you to notice, which is a great skill, and reflect on what happened in the most objective way you can, right? So
Okay.
listing it off objectively, not labeling it yet, not
Mhm.
putting extra flavor on it. And then the next thing I want you to do is just list your feelings, like emotion
Oh,
words, like not big sentences, but just almost bullet points. Because I
okay.
think when we start writing sentences about our emotions, when we're not good at that
Yeah.
arena, which most of us aren't,
Yeah.
I think we get into more of the thoughts than we are sitting with our feelings. And so
Okay.
feelings is I'm feeling sadness or I'm feeling anxiety or I'm feeling, about that. And just sitting with your feelings. So just listing them out. Then have people talk about the thoughts that go with it. I think the thoughts are
Okay.
important. I just think we live in our thoughts more and we really are feeling beings. And
Mhm.
so prioritizing feelings, not over expanding those and getting into thoughts too quickly. And then yeah, tell me what you think about that.
Mm.
And then the last is a question to yourself, is there something I'd like to do with it? And
Okay.
giving yourself genuinely the option to do nothing. I just sat with myself, got to know how I felt and what I thought about the day, noticed my experiences. That is a form of self attunement, to be really present with yourself and not forcing to do anything with it.
Yeah. And I think that's, that flow is really important because sometimes you might feel sad, disappointed, and maybe you don't even know why. Like,
Yeah.
maybe you don't know why yet, and you're not to the thought part yet. And
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
you just need to sit with it. And I think that's something that maybe gets missed a
Uh huh.
lot.
Yeah.
And so that self attunement, I love.
Yeah. Not
Yeah.
rushing it. I just want to like get to know my feelings, list them off, and then I'll think about it. I always tell people you don't have to have some profound insight. There's going to be days where you simply do the practice out of discipline, but that's good.
Yeah. No, that's a great practice. So, in your practice, do you tend to see more couples together or individuals? How
Equally
does
both. Yeah.
both? Okay.
Yeah. And then that depends. You talked about readiness in the beginning.
Yes.
And that depends on all parties. Sometimes there really is a lot of individual work that a person wants to do before they involve their partner.
Okay.
That's fine. We can do that. Sometimes partners aren't ready.
Okay.
And I don't want people to feel like they can't come in if their partner's not ready. Can we do more when partners participate, especially when we're talking about sex?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, we could do a lot more, but it's not that you can't do anything. And then there are times when a couple will come in, everybody's ready to go. And as we assess and look at kind of the bigger picture and start to conceptualize the challenges, it's like, hey, we do have some individual work that if you're willing to do this first, that actually might
Hmm.
help the couples process along. So everything's highly customizable, but I see both.
Yeah. And all ages.
Yeah, all ages that are adults.
Yeah.
Yes.
That are adults. Yes.
Yes, I don't specialize in kiddos.
Yeah.
I have some brilliant colleagues that do, but yeah.
That's amazing. I was noticing in your bio that you integrate EDMR
Yeah.
into your therapy. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that is?
Yeah, so I actually specialize in two forms of eye movements therapies, which is
Okay.
what EMDR and ART are. Eye movements desensitization and reprocessing. It's a mouthful, which is why we use
Yeah.
the short version. Yeah, and
The
then
abbreviation.
accelerated resolution therapy. So I'm trained in both forms of eye movements. A lot of people are really confused about what that is and what it's not.
Hmm.
So, what we have learned in kind of a nutshell version is that when we use eye movements or any form of bilateral stimulation, so
Hmm.
we've even done tapping or audio rotation in the ears, and there's, different science about which one's stronger. But the idea is when you're crossing the midline of the body, when you're stimulating the body, thus stimulating the brain,
Okay.
you're actually helping the brain work in its ideal state. So when we go
Okay.
to bed at night and have rapid eye movement sleep, your brain is doing the processing of the information and the experiences that you had that day. And it's story, pruning, organizing in a way that you'll be able to access it later in a way that's
Okay.
helpful and helps you grow, which is why sleep is so important for learning because that's what you're doing. So when we get we have stuck points in our story, which could be everything from technically trauma to just an adverse negative life experience. They get stuck in the brain in a way that is not necessarily helpful and adaptive learning. So we can use that bilateral stimulation with either eye movements or tactile or audio to help move that through and get it unstuck. So it's a form of trauma therapy that can be used for things even outside of technical trauma. So I use it for
Okay.
everything. It's like the only thing I pretty much do with individuals. And I love it because it's comprehensive. It's going to get at what we call all the content of your story. So it's not
Okay.
just your thinking thoughts or your language center, it's your emotions, it's your body, it's your somatic experience, it's your
Mhm.
nervous system. So we really see a lot of shifts and freedom happen for people who do eye movements therapy. So, yeah,
Wow.
that
That sounds
is
really
my main thing.
powerful.
It
So it
is.
really helps you to process any sort of like thoughts, trauma,
Yeah.
anything that is
Yeah,
stuck.
experiences that are stuck. Yeah. Everything from first experiences, we talk about sexuality, first experiences, maybe they weren't traumatic, but maybe they were like just super unhelpful and like, yeah, they're just in your grid for things that you believe.
Yeah.
Well, you get a chance to kind of work those out where they're more adaptive and they're learning like, oh yeah, I don't want to have that experience again. And you're not like carrying the distress that comes with that experience anymore because
Mhm.
the body leads. We think that we're
Yeah.
thinking about everything, but the body is making us move on impulses and responses way faster than our thinking brain
Mm,
is informing those decisions. And so we want to work with something that's going to clear the body's intuitive movement towards something that's unhelpful,
okay.
which is why I love those therapies.
Wow. It sounds like it can work really well with the type of therapy
Yeah.
that you do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, is there anything that we missed that we haven't gone to talk about yet that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I always just whoever I get to love on and pour into, I just want people to know that there is hope, that if you have never heard that there are options before, whether it's trauma or it's sexuality, that there is hope. There are some really brilliant providers and practitioners that work together who are trained to work
Mhm.
with these challenges and issues, and they are confusing and they're chaotic when you feel alone and isolated in them. And so just don't want people to give up on their
Yeah,
flourishing.
that's awesome. There's hope and there's help.
Yes.
Can you tell everyone where we can find you to follow along and learn more about the services that you offer?
Yeah. So I work clinically in the state of Texas. So I do a lot of online work if someone is a resident of Texas. I also do coaching
Okay.
anywhere. I've got national and international clients coaching wise. So there's some things I can't do in coaching, but I can do a lot of cool stuff within that discipline. You
Mhm.
can find me on my website, jennamountain.com. I also own a local practice, Aspen House Associates. So either of those places. You can also find me on Instagram. I'm an old lady, so I'm not quite as active on all the other platforms, but it's the Jenna Mountain. Yeah.
I love that. I'm a little lady too.
Yeah. I'm in my old lady era. I just own it.
Yes, I know. Well, and there's a lot of power there. I feel like
Yeah.
something shifts after you turn 40
That's a
that like
hundred
I
percent.
don't know. I feel like it's been my best decade yet. So,
I
yeah.
agree. I agree. Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much
Thank
for being
you.
here with us.
Yeah.
And I'm excited for our listeners to learn all about you and what you do and what you offer.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to this Witness Wellness mini episode with the Dallas Duo podcast. A big thanks to all the speakers for sharing their expertise and journeys. Make sure to check out their work and follow them on their Instagram, website, and any other resources provided.
Be sure to catch more interviews as we bring you even deeper insights from this summit. If you're listening later, check out the full Witness Wellness lineup and revisit the sessions you missed. Thanks for being a part of our community of women committed to real wellness. Until next time.